Tonight, we're stepping into one of the most persistent, controversial, and downright unsettling mysteries in human history. UFOs and the possibility that we are not alone. From ancient accounts carved into stone to the infamous Roswell incident to modern-day military encounters caught on radar and released by the Pentagon. These sightings span decades, continents, and cultures. Pilots, astronauts, government officials, and everyday people all telling versions of the same story. Something's out there, and it doesn't behave like anything we understand. But we're looking at misunderstood technology. Or is it a psychological phenomenon? Or is it a big Hollywood movie that aims to make fools out of all of us? We're going to discuss that and more on this episode of Beyond the Noise.
Welcome to the sound we're breaking through. The stories unfold, shining bright and true. Diving deep in thoughts, we'll take you higher. This is the movement, feel the burning fire. Let the voices rise in the echoing space. Join the celebration of every human face. Beyond the noise, we make our way. We make our way. Stories of courage, lighting up the way. This is our time. We're ready to play. On the Soar Network, we'll seize the day. From opinions that matter, we'll lift each frame. Reflect on a journey, yet we'll never be the same. In the heart of the noise, where the wisdom resides. Join us in the moment, where the spirit abides. We soar above it all, breaking every chain. Ignite the passion, let your heart sustain. Beyond the noise, we make our way. We make our way. Stories of courage, lighting up the way. This is our time. We're ready to play. On the Soar Network, we'll seize the day. Get ready, world. We're turning up the heat. Together we rise. Can't accept defeat.
Welcome to Beyond the Noise. I am Republic Sentinel, aka RS, and I am joined by my sometimes co-host, Chiefy. Chiefy, where the hell did you go, dude? He was right here the entire time I was putting together the thumbnail and the description and researching. We had a different show planned, but Yankees predisposed, so I figured this Disclosure Day thing movie dropped, right? A lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people do like it. I don't really care. I like UFOs. So I figured, why not in the in sort of some kind of homage to what used to be a brilliant director, Steven Spielberg, who made probably one of the greatest UFO encounter movies of all time, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I still remember seeing that when I was a kid. Yes, I am that old. I'm sure it doesn't show. But yeah, I remember I've watched that movie. I can't tell you how many times. Richard Dreyfuss was magnificent in that movie. Cannot remember the lady's name, but I can see her face in my head. That movie was unbelievable. Why Steven Spielberg decided to go with Disclosure Day and take the route that he took is beyond me. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie. I've only watched some reviews. People that I trust, people that I believe have a good take. There are plenty of people who have enjoyed this movie, or at least say that it's interesting. But then there are other people who just said that it was very uninspired. And from Spielberg, you expect, Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jaws, some of the most iconic movies ever made, sort of the launch of the summer spectacle in the movie industry. I did like his take on what was it? The alien invasion movie, the one from the 20s or 30s, whatever it was. Doggone it. No, it's just going to rip me up. I had Tom Cruise in it. Doggone it. I own the damn movie. Scheiße. Now I got to look it up. My mind, of course, goes fucking blank every single time I go live. I could sit around and talk to you personally, privately, and just be like going on forever. And now I can't fucking remember. Hold on one second. War of the Worlds. Goodness gracious, why I had to look that up. Brain fart. I'm getting old. It's just the way it is. I hate saying that out loud. You know what? No, That's all. It's a frame of mind. I'm not old. I'm seasoned. You can tell I think I'm a little bit over seasoned. But I don't care. I'll take it. So, yeah, I've dug all the things that he's done. But rather than go into, I'm not a movie reviewer. I've never done a movie review. I play a lot of video games. I don't review video games. It's not my thing. I'll leave that to the people who are passionate about that. I'm not. But I can't even speak to Disclosure Day. It might be great. I have no idea. I don't know if I'll ever see it. I'm so disenfranchised when it comes to the modern movies. I think the last movie I went to the theater to see was Dune 2 with my son, my father, and my neighbor. And it was really, really good. I enjoyed it. Was it great? No, but it was pretty good. What's up, Chaotic? Greg, Ohio, the 3-letter agency in the house for the UFO video. Who go figure? Who'd have thunk? So I figured instead of going down the whole disclosure route with all that, we could have a lot of fun going into the history of not necessarily just UFOs, but encounters in general. So I immediately took to Perplexity and started asking questions. Now, I've seen plenty of videos and researchers talk about UFOs in history, right? And there's a lot of examples of these things, and they all resemble each other. There's all these commonalities. What's up, AGVT? Betty and Barney Hill, absolutely. We'll even talk about that. But I want to go even further back, because one of the coolest things that I ever saw was some of the cave drawings. Right? You guys ever seen any of that? I'm going to go ahead and... So I did all kinds of different research prompts and look through, and I do have, there's a brand new Y-Files basement. Maybe we'll take a peek at later in the show, where you got somebody who worked in, I mean, I think it kind of ties in really good with this whole Disclosure Day movie. Right. So with that going on, this guy, AJ interviews this guy who worked in, basically as a reporter. Yeah, I think he worked for PBS. He worked for a bunch of different places, but he ended up researching UFOs. And I think you'll recognize him. Any of you who've been at least interested in the movement, I think you guys will recognize him. So we're going to peek in and take a look at a little of that. We're not going to watch that whole video here. We'll watch a little, comment on it. I'll be watching you got your comment in the chat. And we'll talk about that, but that's later in the show. Let's start with the history, because I think it's pretty wild. The Chinese have reference. So the oldest UFO-like reports go back to at least classical antiquity, and possibly earlier in Chinese and Indian texts. And that's what's really wild. The stuff out of India. I don't know if any of you guys, AGBT, I don't know if any of you guys have seen some of the drawings, paintings depicting like the war in the sky over India. It's pretty wild. To me, that would be a UFO sighting. But the early Chinese had the moon boat, a reference cited by some historians and popular outlets comes from the 4th century Chinese records describing a moon boat that hovered over. And let's see, I'm going to try and get a picture of this. Hold on a second. And I should probably share my screen. Let me move this around. You guys are just going to have to bear with me. I'm winging this big time. You know, that's very deceiving link. Let me get rid of this. So this moon boat, Chinese records describe a moon boat that hovered over the country periodically every 12 years. The original text is sparse and may be symbolic, but it's often presented as one of the earliest structured objects in the sky descriptions. Let me see if I can actually find it. I had a link and it didn't take me to where it should have. Okay, so it's references to the moon being described as a little boat in the sky in Chinese children's songs and poetry, rather than a specific myth about people literally sailing a boat on the moon. Clearest moon boat motif in modern Chinese culture is the folk song "Little Silver Boat." It's widely taught to Chinese children. But it's cited as being over the country every 12 years. Let me see. I'm not going to give up on this. I want to see if there's any kind of a depiction. I'm not getting any pictures here, and I would love to share it with you guys if I can come up with one. Let me see. Yeah, see, every single time there's only one place that it brings me to, I feel gypped. Earliest UFO image was taken from Mount Washington. That's not what we're looking for. In 1870. The earliest UFO sighting in recorded history can be found in 4th century Chinese tomes, which claim that a moonboat hovered above the country every 12 years. There's a lot of portraits showing stuff flying about in the sky from biblical times, but it's also open to interpretation, yada, yada, yada. To me, it's not open to interpretation. I don't think, listen, I don't think that they painted little flying discs and shit like that into paintings hundreds of years ago because it was quaint or it was supposed to depict an angel. But it's a silver disc, you fucking retard. I just, they expect us to eat that bullshit up. So anyway, there was the moon boat. Let's move on. I can't get any imagery of it. Greco-Roman times, 3rd through the 1st century BCE, Roman historian Livy, writing about events in 218 BCE, mentions phantom ships seen gleaming in the sky. One of the earliest written mentions of aerial objects framed like craft rather than simple lights. And lights, it's hard. I don't know what you guys think. AGBT, Squirrel, Greg, Ohio. What you guys think of the idea of lights in the sky? To me, that can be so misinterpreted. Even going back as far as the 1st century BCE. Because lights can be, there's lensing that goes on in the atmosphere. You can mistake a star. There's comets that go by and you get meteorites that come into the atmosphere. There's all kinds of different phenomena that occur from just natural things occurring. broad daylight and you're talking about silver ships in the sky. Kind of, to me, these phantom ships seen gleaming in the sky. Later, writers such as Pliny the Elder and Plutarch describe unusual lights or objects, including a wine vessel-shaped silver object. Sounds like the cigar-shaped objects a lot of people talk about, appearing between armies in 74 BCE, sounding very craft-like. What do you got, AGVD? The Chinese are very tricky and hard to trust. Are you sure this isn't one of those slippery slope arguments? I mean, no, it could be. Jump on Grok, it will make you a moon boat. But if you choose GPT, half of the Chinese people it draws will be probably true. I don't believe the Chinese now. I don't believe the Chinese in 4th century. Romans has a little bit more credibility. They saw mermaids in the water, bro. You can trust these savage barbarians. I'm sorry, you can't trust these savage. Right, but when it comes, I mean, if you think of the context, right, at the time, and for them to be talking about gleaming ships in the sky, I'm sorry, that sounds like a typical UFO. You know, a metallic UFO. They're seeing the gleam, and especially if it's seen during the day. At night, you can't trust shit. Anybody who sees something at night, I'm not saying that you didn't see anything, and I'm not even saying that it's not a UFO. It's just, it's very, very hard to trust that because of all the confusion that can go on with the dark. Yankee talked about this when we were covering the 411 stuff last week. The missing 411. Other Roman authors, Orosius, Seneca the Elder, Flavius Josephus, also recorded mysterious luminous or object-like apparitions in the sky, showing that weird stuff overhead was a recurring theme well before the modern era. And there's some magnificent paintings. Hopefully we're going to get to all of that. I'd like to get to all of that. I have time. I'm not in any rush. It's not like I just want to get this show over with. I just want to get this in the books. I want to talk about this. This is fun. This is the kind of shit that I like. Freddie Mercury sang songs about the same shit. They're just having fun with stories. I think it's sang songs. I don't know if it's sung songs. You know what? I don't even care. I mean, the way that the English language gets butchered on the regular, who cares, right? I don't care. I know what you mean. I don't know. Is it just that, or is it actual accounts? Now, you know what? I'll hold on to mine for a little bit. I'll hold on to mine for a little bit. Let's stick with the ancient stuff. In ancient India, Hindu Sanskrit texts like the Vedas and epics such as the Mahabharata contain detailed descriptions of Vimanas. I'm probably getting that wrong. Flying chariots or palaces used by gods. Sometimes double-deck circular craft with portals and domes, wielding powerful weapons. These are religious, mythical narratives, but many ancient astronaut interpretations read them as memories of advanced aerial vehicles. Some passages even resemble a mix of aerial warfare and what modern readers might call abductions. I know the Indian stuff, and let's see. There's hold on a second. No, I didn't want you to do that. You suck. Why? Let me go in here. I click on things and I expect them to open up in another window. I'm not mad. You are. Here, open in a new tab. Here we go. Let me see. I'm not going to show you this whole video, but I'm hoping that they actually show some of these drawings that exist. Yeah, well. All right. Let me do this. All right. We'll go through some of this. This is UFOs, Ancient Knowledge, and Paranormal Theories Explained. Book of Secrets, full documentary. Again, I'm not using this as a reference to like prove my thoughts on it. I'm just trying to show you guys examples. So let me see. Let me share my screen. You've got that taco smell. Here we go. Let me see. Can I add myself here? No. Well, where am I? Where am I? All right, never mind. You guys don't need to see me. You know what I look like. Long-haired lazy fuck. Here we go. So there's some depictions. I know it's very vague here. Get the ships in the sky. Right, I'll even let's
The Maya also had similar beliefs. This time they involved a place called Xibalba, which means the place of fear.
Okay, so I think they're talking about the Maya there, but here you've got many of these depictions like this here.
To depict what they saw. All of this seems to add fuel to the legitimate question, what were these ancient people attempting to depict? As if this was not enough, there are also indications that this mysterious underworld might be even stranger than we can imagine.
So there are different depictions, and they're better ones. I'm just going through this guy's video. I was, like I said, I wasn't all that prepared for any of this. Well, here, let me, we'll leave that one there. I wasn't too impressed with that, but I've seen better. I mean, what the hell? We're getting into this. Might as well get all into it. And just bear with me, and we'll go through it. So there, yeah. All right, I got some pictures here. So let's see. Oops, hold on a second. I got to stop my share. And I'll bring it back up. Hold on a second. All right. That guy's video sucked. Well, no, it was fine. It just wasn't really what I was looking for. All right, let me share some of these depictions with y'all. Okay. There we go. So you got these depictions of these wars in the sky. And these, it's like depicting these craft in the sky with the palaces in the sky. But if you think about like what their reference point was, you know what I mean? What references they could make with the world that they live in. And that they had these narratives of these wars, aerial warfare, and people getting taken. So I think that's, it's interesting. Again, it's all just sort of interpretations of things that were written long before we ever existed. So, you and I, which isn't saying much, that it's thousands of years ago. But then, of course, you can get into the Sumerian, right? What do we got? If I pitched my hardest case, I might be able to convince you Orenthal James Simpson is a murderer. As a matter of law, our history clearly shows no such thing. It's just a crazy conspiracy theory. That's a lady with a nice rack. I'm not an anthropologist, but I respect Gonzagas in all art forms. Yeah, well, no. I'm not a historian either. All I'm doing is winding my way through these different summaries of you got, okay, so the Sumerians, right? And this was something that Yankee loves to talk about, Zecharia Sitchin, with his let's say controversial interpretation of Sumerian records, talking about sky gods from the planet Nibiru, called the Anunnaki, right? And really, I went down the whole Anunnaki rabbit hole. It's sketchy at best. I'd highly recommend the Y Files. AJ did a whole thing on Zecharia Sitchin, and the Anunnaki. So, and look, I try to keep a skeptic's eye, but I want to believe. I do. Right? What? You guys want to check that out? We can check that one out. And you guys, you know what? You guys can make up your own mind. I don't know if we ever covered that here. We might have covered that before. The Anunnaki and I think we did. We covered the Anunnaki here. So I don't want to go back over tread over the same territory. And I personally think that Zecharia Sitchin was a con man. That's me. Other people believe otherwise, but it really was kind of, when you look at AJ's breakdown of it, he didn't have any of the credentials that he claimed to have. He didn't go to the schooling that he con men built this civilization. Well, that is absolutely correct. But con men built almost every known civilization. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I wrong? If you can get people to follow you into war and decimation, you're a pretty good con man. And then there's biblical references. Documentary treatments also highlight biblical passages such as Ezekiel's vision of the wheels within wheels in the sky, right? Living creatures recast as a possible encounter with a machine or craft rather than a purely spiritual vision. I could believe that. See, when it comes to the documentation coming from a time where somebody can only relate to what they know, and they look in the sky and they see this, they're going to reference it to something in the common world around them. That makes sense to me. So all these different depictions or descriptions from the past sort of just like they make reference to, in a worldly fashion, to what they know and what they live in, their shared, their reality. So yeah, the wheels and within wheels, I could see that probably being a UFO. Plenty of it. We've talked about the Book of Enoch here, which sounds a lot like an abduction case. God came down in his big burning four-wheeler. Exactly, AGVT. Exactly. That's basically kind of what the Book of Enoch depicts. This is why it's considered apocryphal. This is why the Catholic Church decided not to include it in the Bible, even though in the earliest known Bible, the Ethiopian Bible, the Book of Enoch is included. So I don't know. You decide. It's the same thing with Zecharia Sitchin and the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, we do know that it was like it was kind of, when everything that I've read about the Anunnaki is that they're similar to, the Greek gods. There was a pantheon of gods. And now, does that mean that it's not a reference to an actual, alien species that came here and visited us? I'm not saying it's not. As a matter of fact, it sounds a lot like it. But a lot of these things sound like that. And it sounds sort of like, what are we doing now, right now in society when it comes to UFOs? It's the same kind of thing. We're just referencing it from a modern standpoint. But when we think about aliens and then them coming here and what, being omnipotent or far more advanced than us, and maybe they can teach us, or maybe they'll annihilate us and wipe us off the planet. Or maybe they've been coming here for thousands of years. I have no idea. But the UFO phenomenon goes back centuries, millennia. So it's nothing new. This is why I give it credence. Because when you have this consistent history of these things being reported and the large similarities between all the different depictions and descriptions, it's very feasible to me that they've just been coming here for a long time. Possibly, we can get more into this later, but possibly they're a civilization that lives under the sea. They live under the ocean. They're far more advanced than us. I'm not saying that they're even an ancient human civilization. They could be. You never know. But they're a civilization that's been here for a very long time, and it's almost as if they sort of they kind of like cast us aside, kind of like, yeah, get out of here, kid, you're bothering me, kind of thing. And they just go about their business. Every once in a while, I don't know, maybe they see a hot chick with big tits and they're like, abduct her. I don't know if they even have that kind of drive. Is it first civilization, one civilization, or 1,000? The thing that I like, I watched a Yankee had shared the video with me, and I had already seen it. It was on Diary of a CEO. It was an interview with Graham Hancock, and Graham Hancock believes, and as do I, and as a matter of fact, there's plenty of documentation to suggest that civilization is far older than we thought it was. And I think that the pyramids are far older than they tell us they are. Of course, the Egyptians don't want to lose that legacy because money, it gets tourism. But even with Göbekli Tepe and everything, all the tepes in yeah, I got to get Graham Hancock to sign my book before it's too late. So did you see that video? AGVT, did you see that interview that he did? Because he's going under the knife, right? He's going in for surgery. And he said it himself, there's a slight possibility that he dies during this surgery. But yeah, I can, here, hold on a second. I'll get that video up. Let me, and I'll share it in the chat. Definitely go and check him out. Here we go. It's his latest. Let me go to the channel itself. I'll get you the full interview, and you can see I've already watched most of it. Let me hit share. I will copy it, and I'll paste it in both my live chat and the Beyond the Noise live chat, because we are on both channels tonight. Go check that out. That is, I think it's the last interview that Graham's doing before his surgery. Don't quote me on that, but I think it might be. Where he talks about how he even mentions that there's a possibility that there's a civilization that lives under the sea. Of course, this is all speculation because this, like Disclosure Day, right? This idea that the government is going to disclose, or that the information is going to be disclosed to us, that aliens are real and UFOs are real and blah. And when the government does it, I'm like really, really suspicious. I'm like, okay, why are you doing this? You want us all looking over that way, don't you? You want us looking at that because you're doing some other shady shit that you don't want us to pay attention to. I don't know. But let's well, wait, before I move on. So the idea that civilization is far older, 12,000 years so far, and honestly, it seems as though it probably goes back 40 to 100,000 years ago, and possibly 200,000 years ago. It depends on who you listen to. Right. And of course, the mainstream archaeology is going to tell you that you're full of shit, pie in the sky, garbage. I want to believe. So I take things with a pinch of salt, but I consider them all. But yeah, I do believe the civilization goes farther back, even farther back than Göbekli Tepe and all the tepes that are over there. What did they found, like 100 of them or so, or something like that? I say all the tepes. They all have tepe in the description, and I cannot remember what that word means. I don't really care. It's excuse me, it is part of the reference that they make to these things. So that, and I think that there's others, there's plenty of stuff that goes back thousands of years that we don't understand, that we don't know, and it seems to be evidence of civilization, possibly a global civilization, because there seems to be different shared languages. There seems to be shared architecture. You know, pyramids being built in the Amazon around the time that the Egyptians were building pyramids. And yet there's no reference to them ever having conversed. Ever having contacted one another. And that would be difficult. There's a vast distance between the Mediterranean and Brazil, Colombia, wherever. So you've got early modern pre-flying saucer sightings. 1639. Boy, oh boy. I read that completely different. 1639, the Pilgrim UFO near Boston. Right here in America. Massachusetts Bay Governor John Winthrop recorded an event in his 1639 journal. James Everell and two others in a boat saw a great light moving back and forth across the muddy river for 2 to 3 hours, at times contracting into a figure 8 and appearing to move over the land. That could be all kinds of things, to be fair. After the display ended, the men reportedly found their boat had been carried upstream against the tide, leading some modern commentators to treat it as both the oldest recorded UFO in North America and an early abduction-like narrative. 1665 Air Battle of Stralsund, the Baltic Sea. 6 fishermen near Stralsund on the Baltic coast witnessed what they described as an aerial battle. Multiple objects and smoke in the sky above the city, followed later by dark gray disk hovering over the church before fading. The event was seriously recorded at the time and has since been re-examined as an early example of a structured disc-like apparition over a populated area. 1693, water was poisoned and everyone in Boston was blottoed 24/7. Not much unlike today. 1801, moon-like orb over Hull, England. A report in the Northampton Mercury described a huge moon-like orb over Hull around 1 a.m. on July 11th, 1801, with a blue light and a black bar across it. Witnesses said it formed into 7 small globes of fire, then 5 circular balls, then small star-like lights before fading, illuminating the atmosphere. Some researchers call this one of the earliest clearly documented UFO newspaper cases, but to me, that sounds more like, asteroids, meteors, something like that. It still predates the idea of aliens, though, in craft. People saw anomalies and tried to map them onto religious, astrological, and atmospheric explanations. See, those were hillbillies with fireworks and moonshine. You never know. Very easily could be. See, that's the thing. Descriptions of lights in the sky at night don't impress. I don't mean to be dismissive. I don't mean to be an ass, but Everything, Yankee talked about it himself. You could swear you see something in the dark. And it turns out to be a tree. But you could swear it's the Jersey Devil or Bigfoot, or I think he was saying that it was a giant deer with a huge rack. No, not tits. That ended up being a tree, with branches of a tree. So anything you see in the sky, to me at night, especially with how many things we've got flying with all the drones and small aircraft, large aircraft that we have, I think that at night in particular, when you can't see, you can't really make out shape. Maybe you think you do, but you can't really truly be sure what the shape is that you're seeing. Lights in particular, you can see all kinds of natural phenomenon at night that look very strange. And ended up being two. Did you ever hear the story about Joe Rogan having to fight off a pack of wolves that surrounded him while he was bow hunting? It ended up being two squirrels in the dark, but Joe was fucking ready to go. Joe Rogan? No, I never heard that. But I watch Rogan sometimes. I think all of that, though, all of that, there's definitely at night your senses make up for the fact that you can't see well. So your hearing gets more acute and other things. So, it's very hard. When it's dark and you're alone in the woods, your mind plays tricks. Exactly, AGVD. Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what I'm thinking. So it's not that I'm dismissive. I'm not saying that I don't believe. I'm saying that I'm more inclined to believe that it's probably a misinterpretation of something. So let's go into some more history of UFOs. So 1800s and early 1900s, newspaper reports in the U.S. and elsewhere described cigar-shaped airships with searchlights, sometimes said to land or hover low and contain strange occupants, but these are wrapped in the context of experimental human airships and often mixed with obvious tall tales. Like I said, I'm not dismissive of the tale itself, but that the first thing that would come to mind when it comes to a cigar-shaped craft with searchlights, yeah, I'm thinking of a Zeppelin blimp. Early years of them experimenting with that. And of course, if you've never seen one before and you suddenly see one in the night sky, you're probably going to think that it's, I'd think that it's some sort of UFO. I mean, by definition, unidentified flying object, but some sort of mystical thing. But again, what bothers me a little bit is that any of the UFO sightings or abductions that took place pre-Kenneth Arnold, they're usually depicted as anecdotal. They're anecdotal and they're wrapped in folklore. And A lot of it's tied to religion. And I just feel like that's a way to compartmentalize these things and to be able to dismiss them. So I don't mean to dismiss them outright. I want to know the truth. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not about like what I believe. I just want to know the truth. And I don't like that it goes along with ancient civilizations in the whole 9 yards. A lot of people in the mainstream apparatus dismiss it outright because they don't want to acknowledge that it could possibly be something else. And I think that does a disservice to history in general. On its face, it sounds like this, but what is it really? I would rather, personally, I just want to know the truth. I don't care if it's actually an air balloon. I want to know that it's an air balloon. Not that people are being scoffed off as, it's just some drunk hick out in the woods who's in the middle of bucking a mountain goat and saw shit in the sky and it was God. Or, I'm being very facetious, but I don't like the dismissal of it as not being evidence of some sort of UFO or aliens or any of that stuff. It's to me, that's always got to be considered a possibility. Now, if there's clear evidence that can point to, no, what they were seeing was Polaris. And the way it was situated in the sky and lensing within the atmosphere made it look like it did this and went here and did that. But the reality is it didn't go anywhere. We can prove that. Okay, that's a different story. I don't like the outright dismissal. It sounds snobbish. So modern UFOs, though, this is where things really start to take shape. In the 40s and 50s, you got the Second World War, and the early Cold War flipped the script, giving the tech and threat framework that defines UFO culture. Foo Fighters in World War II, not the band. Allied and Axis pilots reported glowing spheres and lights pacing aircraft, popularly called Foo Fighters, whose behavior didn't match known aircraft or flares. These were taken seriously enough to be logged as possible enemy tech, but no definitive explanation emerged. And yet, there are plenty of pilots back then that openly spoke about these things. They didn't care. And a lot of them, they didn't have, look, we hadn't gone out of the atmosphere yet. So there's no reference point to spacecraft, right? But then you had Kenneth Arnold that came along, and this flying saucer thing, right? They weren't really saucers, right? I think they were like half saucers with sort of like a jagged end on them. In June 1947, private pilot Kenneth Arnold reported seeing a formation of high-speed crescent-shaped objects near Mount Rainier, moving in a way he compared to saucers skipping on the water, hence the birth of the name flying saucer. New reports mistranslated this into flying saucers, and the term rapidly became shorthand for any UFO, leading a massive wave of sightings that summer. Which, I guess that could even be shown as sort of like a, mass psychosis. Or people weren't looking before. Now they are because of the reports that came out. You could look at it from a number of different angles. I believe what Kenneth Arnold saw, that doesn't mean that there's any definitive explanation as to what they actually were. But then, of course, you have Roswell, which I think the further and further along we go, there's been enough, oh God, I'm going to say it, government disclosure that suggests that something did crash out there, that it wasn't a weather balloon. But so in July of 1947, debris recovered near Roswell Army Airfield, New Mexico, was first announced as a flying disc and then re-described by the military as a weather balloon. Later linked to a classified Project Mogul balloon train, which I personally don't buy at all, because at first the report was a crashed UFO. And then, of course, the Air Force comes in and cleans it up real quick. Oh, no, it was an air balloon. But it's private. We can't show you because it's a top secret program and you can't see it. Roswell becomes the archetypal crash retrieval legend, later expanded by witnesses who claim bodies in a secret cover-up, although official accounts insist it was terrestrial hardware. Everybody believes the mainstream narrative, right? Sure, it was terrestrial hardware. U.S. Air Force ran a series of investigations, Project Sign, Project Grudge. I've read Project Blue Book. I actually owned that book. Cataloging thousands of reports and concluding most had conventional explanations with a small residual unknown. And there were, to be fair, in Project Blue Book, there were references to things that were classified as unknown, but most of them very irresponsibly were made to seem like they were something more natural or in the societal nomenclature rather than something outrageous, something that we don't have any reference for. These efforts coincided with major sightings waves in the early 50s, including objects tracked on radar and visual by military personnel, cementing UFOs as both a security and public fascination issue. And I would have to probably subscribe to the idea that the reason that the government doesn't want these kinds of things to get out there, or in limited terms, and we can get into some of the more crazy shit, but it's probably because they don't want people to know what they actually have. I think that it was Lazar who said that. I think it was Lazar. I want to be sure on that. I can't remember. I don't think it was Greer. I think it was Lazar that said that there were the Russians were working with the Americans on the UFOs that they had. Lazar said that the UFO that he was working on was dug up at an archaeological site, which is wild because that's sort of like there's this what do they call it? A gauntlet that's buried in Egypt, near the Great Pyramids, that goes down many levels. And they know because they've used LiDAR. They know that it's down there. But of course, the Egyptian government won't dig it up because reasons. But supposedly, there is a large metallic object in the center of some big room, all buried beneath the sand. And of course, speculation abound because they're not going to dig it up. They're not going to let us know what's down there anyway. And if they did dig it up, they do it in a way that nobody could see it. They do whatever they could. They put giant tarps just over the entire area. And people, oh, what are you doing in there? Move along, move along, move along. Nothing to see here. Move along. Nothing to see here, folks. But Lazar talks about this being a joint operation that was going on with where they were trying, because apparently the Russians have a bunch of these things too. Again, this is considering that you believe this, and I have no particular reason not to, but and then the U.S. government kicked them out for some reason. And the speculation is that we cracked something, that we cracked how to operate one of these things or something, or some sort of functionality. And they didn't want the Russians to know because they got one too. And of course that makes sense. To me, that would make sense because it gives an advantage to the side that figures the stuff out first, right? So, that's not even remotely hard for me to conceive. That's not even remotely hard for me to believe. But if what Lazar said is true, that they found the UFO that he was working on reverse engineering, the propulsion system. He said that it was found at an ancient burial site or an ancient archaeological site. I don't think he said where or what culture. But that would kind of further the idea that there were UFOs back then and that they were coming here. They've been coming here for a very long time. Landings, humanoids, and the first abduction lore. From the 1960s, reports shift from distant lights to alleged landings, beings, and then classical abductions. 1960s global waves. Sightings surge worldwide, often around missile sites and nuclear facilities, feeding later speculation about a nuclear monitoring agenda. And that is ubiquitous across the world. The UK, Soviet Union, America, Soviet Union at the time, numerous countries all around the world. Supposedly, UFOs came to these nuclear missile sites, hovered over them, were able to turn the things on and off. Excuse me. Like that these things were able to control the missile sites. And sightings went up drastically. Many cases involve structured discs, sometimes leaving ground traces. There's some great stories of these things landing and there being evidence on the ground of them being there. And then lifting off. And there's even, I think, if I'm not mistaken, even footprints. What was the famous New Mexico case? Let me look this up because I remember reading about it. It blew my mind. It was a cop. No, not Roswell. Hold on, I'll get it for you. I read it. I remember reading it when I was very young. There you go, Lonnie Zamora. The Socorro UFO incident, 1964, near Socorro, New Mexico, and there was evidence that, and there are pictures here, and I'm gonna get them for you. I'm gonna bring them all up. We'll look at this one pretty close, maybe. And let's see if we can get a complete rundown of his story. And then I'll show. Oh, you know the one I'm talking about? There are pictures, too, of the actual ground. There were physical traces. Hold on. An ordinary spring afternoon, 1964, Socorro, New Mexico, was quiet in the way only a desert town can be. The sky was clear, the air dry, and Police Sergeant Lonnie Zamora was doing what he did most days on patrol, watching the roads and listening to the radio, ready for the usual small-town trouble. Damn punks. A little before 6 p.m., Zamora spotted a car speeding on the outskirts of town and swung his cruiser around to give chase. As he accelerated along the highway, the pursuit was suddenly interrupted by something that didn't fit any routine call he'd ever answered. From somewhere off to his right towards a shallow, dusty arroyo, he heard a sharp, powerful roar. Almost at the same moment, he saw a flash of bluish-orange flame rise above the desert brush, as if something had exploded or a vehicle had caught fire. In that instant, the speeding car became the least of his concerns. I remember reading all about this when I was a kid. There was a wreck out there, someone might be hurt, and the responsibility to check it out fell squarely on him. He broke off the pursuit, turned off the road, and guided his patrol car over the uneven rocky ground toward the source of the noise and flame, tires slipping in loose sand as he dropped into the arroyo. The closer he got, the more the scene ahead refused to make sense. At first, through heat, shimmer, and dust, Zamora thought he saw an overturned car, something white or aluminum colored sitting oddly in the desert. The object looked roughly the size of a small car, but with a strange, smooth oval shape, like a white egg lying on its side in the scrub. There were no obvious wheels, no shattered glass, no scattered debris, just this rounded object sitting alone in the dirt. He parked his cruiser on a rise and stepped out, the dry wind carrying the smell of the desert. Something else. A faint, sharp odor like something had recently burned. As he started down toward the object, he realized he wasn't alone. Near the craft, he saw two figures. They were small, shorter than an average adult, and they wore what looked like white coveralls or suits. that contrasted starkly with the sand earth around them. From his vantage point, he couldn't make out faces or fine details, only that they seemed humanoid and were moving with purpose around the object. One of them turned this, I remember this very distinctly when I read it when I was young. One of them looks at him and is startled. In that moment, the surreal scene became frighteningly real. Whatever this was, it was an wrecked car, and there weren't stranded motorists waving for help. Zamora's training told him to observe, to take in details. He noticed that the white object rested on what appeared to be legs or struts, extending down into the dirt, as if it had gently set itself there. On its side, he saw a symbol, a red insignia, roughly triangular or arrow-like, the kind of marking that might indicate an organization of origin. Except he had never seen anything like it on any vehicle before. Before he could call out to the figures or decide whether to approach or take cover, the situation changed again. A sudden rising sound split the air, much louder and more focused than before. The underside of the object erupted in a brilliant concentrated flame, blue and orange, lancing down toward the ground. Instinctively, Zamora ducked behind his car and scrambled for better cover, fearing an explosion. Instead of blowing apart, the object rose. Dust and small rocks whipped through the air as the craft lifted off the desert floor. Its landing legs retracted or disappearing from view. For a moment, it hovered low, clearing the brush, the roar and flame intense and controlled. Zamora, peeking from cover, watched it with a mixture of fear and disbelief. He knew aircraft. He'd heard jets overhead from bases around the region, seen helicopters and conventional planes. This was not any of those. The object climbed, the roar shifted in pitch, then swung into a shallow, deliberate arc away from him and the town. As it gained altitude, the noise diminished, the flame no longer visibly licking down beneath it. It passed low over the desert and then accelerated, moving away faster and faster until it became just another distant, inexplicable shape against the sky, and finally nothing at all. Shaken, heart racing, he radioed in what he'd seen. As best he could describe it, the words felt strange in his mouth. White, egg-shaped craft. You know what it sounds like to me? That sounds like early prototypes of the lunar landing module or something. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. Because most of the craft that at least what I've heard about, has never had like flames or anything like that. I have heard of things like dripping off of it, like metal or something like that. And people have gotten samples of that stuff that's melted off. I don't know what that's ever been described as, what it actually is. So he reported it. Officers arrived on the scene. Together they walked to the area where Zamora said the craft had been. Desert floor was no longer pristine. Dry soil. They found 4 shallow impressions arranged in a pattern, as if something heavy on 4 legs had rested there. The surrounding brush was scorched and blackened. And let me see if I can get you guys a picture of that. There's an actual picture. Oops. Keeps bringing me to Wikipedia. I cannot see. I cannot stand Wikipedia. Hold on a second. Yeah. It's not. There's a picture there, but it's not. Let me see. Fuck Wikipedia. I can't stand Wikipedia. Let me see. Is this okay? So there's pictures of there. Let me put this up here. I'll show you what I got. I'll share this with you. Fuck Wikipedia. Let me share my screen. No. There we go. Hear that. Go to this. Oop. All right, here you go. So you got this. Scorched land. These are they're depictions of the thing, not actual pictures of the object. You got this where they're out by the spot where it was sitting. Here we go. And I mean, you see, it's really hard to get any real reference here. This is like one of the marks where the legs were. I don't know. This is supposedly kind of what the thing looked like. But this is what I get the impression of, right? This is what it makes me think of when I hear about it. They must have been experimenting with early lunar type stuff. Here's sort of drawing going along with it. So I don't know. But I always thought that was a very interesting story. The whole idea of the damn the burning on the ground, that's kind of wild. So you got that incident. You got incidents in Melbourne. The Westall incident in Melbourne, 1966, involved dozens of students and teachers who reported a disc-shaped object near the school, hovering or landing briefly before departing. You got those kids in Africa, right at that school that they all said that the UFO landed and they all saw it and it talked to them and all that other stuff. The aliens that came out talked to them telepathically. Alan Hynek, who had worked with Project Blue Book, coined the close encounter classification: first kind visual, second kind physical effects, third kind entities observed, and later the fourth kind, which is like abduction or whatever. Then, of course, you had the Cold War. The Rendlesham Forest, UK, 1980. That was big, where, I mean, this is all documented, right? That military personnel witnessed all of this stuff. There were these lights, and they were over top of the actual nuclear silo, and they turned things on and off. There are it's multi-witnessed, military-linked, low-altitude craft, ground traces, and radar. Rendlesham U.S. Air Force personnel at Rendlesham Air Force Base, Woodridge, and Bentwaters in Suffolk reported strange lights in adjacent Rendlesham Forest over 2 nights in December 1980, including a triangular object, beam-like lights, and physical impressions on the ground. A memo from Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt described the events, and it later reached Parliament. The UK Minister of Defense concluded the incident posed no defense significance, but they shut down the nuclear facility. But it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Go shopping. Conducted no formal technical investigation beyond basic review. And then you got that Belgian triangle, right? Which was interesting. If we get a picture, there was a classic picture that came out of that wave of sightings, right? 1989 to 1990, Belgium experienced a wave of sightings of large, silent, triangular craft with lights at the corners, often reported by multiple witnesses. Yeah, but I'm not finding what I want here. It's garbage. On the 30th and 31st March 1990, the Belgian Air Force scrambled F-16s after radar contact with an unknown object. Over central Belgium, fighters attempted intercepts, but pilots reported no clear visual. An object was never identified, though skeptics later suggested radar artifacts and misidentifications. I mean, which could be, but there was a classic. Let me see if I can get that picture going on over there. I'll share that up. Here we go. The Petit Richane photo from Belgian UFO wave. Nighttime shot of a triangular craft with 3 bright white lights at the corners. And I think, was it admitted as a hoax? I can't be sure. I don't know. I don't believe anything that anybody says anymore. But here, I'll share this. Right. I don't know. Was that a hoax? I just remember seeing it when I was a kid. And I was younger. in 1990. Yeah, I think that there are reports that the guy who took the picture admitted that it was a hoax. But to me, what I always figured with the triangular aircraft that they were that they're ours, all of them. I figure they're all ours until somebody can prove to me otherwise. It's ours. Dabble in alien shit. This was the story you could easily find pre-internet. Absolutely. Stealth tech and misidentification. So, and that's why, especially with the triangular craft, that a lot of people report that they saw. I always figured that they were early designs of like stealth aircraft that we were making. Right? And some of them are gigantic, supposedly as big as a football field. I don't know. I didn't see them. But I just associate that with humans. We've demonstrably created some very similar things. And when it's nighttime and it's airborne, of course it's going to look like something else. Then you got the lights over Phoenix, which has been hotly debated. Was it real? Were the Phoenix lights real? I don't know. I saw them. I don't know what the hell it was. I mean, I wasn't there. I saw what everybody else saw, the video. And I found it very funny that who was it? The governor came out, didn't he? He dressed up like an alien after having, somewhat emotionally talked about his own experience witnessing it. And then he just goes with the whole, you guys take this too seriously, and was dressed up in an alien outfit. Whatever, dude. Again, that's probably because the military came to him and said, you need to keep your fucking mouth shut. Now go out there, make a fool out of yourself, and make everybody else feel like retards so that they just dismiss it. But I always figured that was our own stuff. All right, so I myself saw with, at the time, my son's mother. She remembers it very clearly. We've talked about it since. In 2005, September of 2005, clear blue sky, Sunday morning, about 10:30, 10:15, 10:30, right in there. 6 disc-shaped craft. And they would hover. Let's see, here we go. I'll use this. This is a smoke detector that needs a new battery. I could have just left it up there and you could have listened to the chirp. And when they were, I stood right underneath one, looked right up at it. Sun was down. There was no clouds in the sky. And when it would sit in one spot, it would go like this. And from where I was standing, when it would come around, it was metallic. It was silver metallic. The sun would almost blind me, you get the reflection from the top as it was going around like this. And then it'd just be gone. You wouldn't even really, it was hard to track them. They'd just move and they'd be in a different spot. And then they'd stop and they'd hover and you'd get that same effect of them kind of sort of like a plate that's spinning on a stick, right? It kind of, when it starts to wobble. We saw them for 45 minutes. I never once believed them to be alien at all. Not even remotely. I don't even think it ever crossed my mind that they were alien. I always assumed that they were ours. And I believe that probably goes back to the whole Nazi Bell shit. That the Germans were working on this kind of anti-gravity propulsion stuff in World War II. Where they got the information, I have no idea. But there's extensive documentation about it occurring. So just extrapolate that out. That was 2005. So what? 60, 70 years later? Yeah, I'm sure that it's come a long way. I'm sure that they've got all this technology. And I'm sure they don't want any of the plebs having it. Because it's probably 0-point energy, or it's using some sort of energy source that would probably step on the dick of oil companies. And what would happen if you suddenly made modern energy resources insignificant? The economy would tank. So to a degree, I can understand why they keep that secret. But again, if you're talking about ancient UFOs, if you're talking about UFOs even 150 years ago, 100 years ago, that requires a bit more belief that it's got to be something other than human beings that were flying it. But I could easily believe that we found this kind of technology and we've since been manufacturing it in the private space. And this kind of, all of this stuff needs to be hidden from the public until they can't hide it anymore. I'm kind of surprised that they've hidden it for this long, that it hasn't been completely and totally exposed, although it's seemingly you can have mass sightings. People see this shit and en masse, and lots of people see it in broad daylight and everything else. And the only response from the government is, we'll look into it. I mean, if that isn't a middle finger to the face, saying, we're never telling you, pleb. But so the whole UFO phenomenon goes back centuries, millennia. And now you get into disclosure. And I don't know anything about this silly movie that came out. And I'm a sci-fi fan. It's my favorite kind of entertainment. Science fiction, especially when it comes to aliens and spacecraft and all that stuff. I love that kind of stuff. That's my favorite form of entertainment. I want to believe in a lot of things. It's just it's hard to believe in anything. So you take it with a grain of salt. And you look at it through whatever lens you want, because nobody's ever going to tell you the truth. Nobody in any official capacity is going to tell you the truth. So just roll with it and believe whatever you want to. Because even if you choose, whatever you choose to believe, none of it will be confirmed. So why don't we check this out? Actually, why don't we do this? Why don't we take a quick break? Because I've been going for a minute. Why don't we take a quick break? And when we come back, we'll get into this Bryce Zabel interview. We'll sample it. We'll take a little look at it. Maybe talk a little bit about it, and then we'll call it a wrap for the evening. But if you're new to Beyond the Noise, please hit that follow button. Yankee and I usually do this together. This was very makeshift. I just threw this together last minute. I don't know. Sounded fun, especially with this Disclosure Day having come out. A lot of talk about that. And again, I'm not really, I don't care. Modern Hollywood sucks ass. And I want nothing to do with it. From what I understand, it's not woke. So that's great. But I heard it's very incoherent. It doesn't tell a very good story. And in my mind, if you're going to do something like a movie about the truth of UFOs being disclosed to the public, there's some very clear ways you could do that. Apparently, they didn't do that with this movie, but I don't know. Some people like it. Some people don't. Don't take my word for shit. I am not a movie critic. I don't do any kind of reviews of any of that shit. Go watch the movie if you want. It's, hey, it's summer movie season. I'm not going, but you can. And don't let me influence what you think. Go and enjoy yourself. But yeah, so if you're new here, follow the channel. Normally, Saturday nights we do conspiracy theory kind of stuff, tinfoil hat shit, just for fun, have a good time, and bend our brains to think about things outside of everyday life, and about the possibility of things that could be, could not be, who knows. Then Mondays, we're doing a music show where we're going to be talking about music, the history of music, covering different instrument types, things like of that nature. So if something like that interests you, make sure that you follow the channel and hit the notification so that you get notified when we do go live. And then Wednesday, which is What the Fuck Chat, where we talk to you guys. You let us know what it is that you want to talk about. So please make sure that you do all those things. You follow, you like, you subscribe, you hit the notification. But we're going to take a little break. Go ahead and stretch your legs, grab some fluid, drain some fluids, grab some snacks. But don't go anywhere. We're going to cover the Y-Files basement interview with Bryce Zabel right after this quick break. And we're back. How's it going? All right, so I did put a link to the video that we're going to be covering here next. In the live chat, I pinned it on mine. I couldn't pin it in Beyond the Noise for some reason, but that's all right. It's in the live chat, and I'll make sure it goes in the description. As a matter of fact, I think I can. Right here. I can do it. I can do it. Yeah. Here we go. I updated the stream. It is pasted into the description. It is through YouTube because the White Files Rumble page does not have it on there yet for whatever reason. Well, because YouTube's where you make your money. Rumble is where you get to speak freely. So yeah, there you go. All right. So I haven't watched any of this. I only watched a preview of it. It looks really interesting. This guy worked in the major news publications talking about UFOs, and I know that some very strange things happened to him. You'll know him when you see him. He had a very big sort of mainstream show. So we'll go ahead and I'll put this on. We can watch it together. And then we'll stop it and we'll talk about it. Here and there. Here and there. Hold on a second. Here we go. I have to un momento, por favor. I have to get rid of something here. There we go. And let me put this here like this. There we go. I had to make some adjustments so that I can watch it with you and we can stop and we can talk about it. Because oh, there we go. That's the thing. Okay. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this this interview on the basement of the WWII Files with Bryce Zabel. Be sure to sound off in the chat if you got anything, if anything activates in your mind that you want to talk about when you're listening to it. So here we go.
Bryce, welcome to the basement.
Hey, it's great to get in the basement. I mean, I want to thank you so much for letting me into this special place to talk about all these things we're going to talk about. It's a great set, folks. I mean, this is really wonderful. It's really,
I appreciate that.
It's great. And, I know you're just starting the basement, so I'm really happy to be in the inaugural class of these people.
Yes,
so
you are. It's a very small fraternity.
Yes, but growing.
But growing, unless this is our last one. We'll see.
Yeah.
How are Patrick and Einstein doing? I was wondering.
There's a callback. Well, the truth of the matter is those are my endangered desert tortoises that we have. And this is amazing. I'm reeling from the thing because we don't have them anymore. One of them ran away.
What?
And one of them died. but they've been replaced by two other turtles, Wendy and Lilith. So the guys are gone, and the women are in.
Okay.
And I don't think of myself as a responsible pet owner per se. My son's excellent at it, for example, but not me. And my wife Jackie and I, we say endangered desert tortoises are good because half the year you don't have to do anything but put them in a box, right?
That's all you do to them?
Yeah, you just put them in the box and hibernate them, and then the other half of the year, just give them some cut up zucchini and some lettuce, and let them party.
How long?
Yeah, I had a tortoise when my son was very young. We named him Muddy. He was I cannot remember what the hell kind of tortoise it was, but started off like this big, ended up gigantic. He's in a preserve now, living large.
How long do they live? Long time, right?
So long.
They
that,
live very long.
It'll be my
70s.
grandkids probably that end up having to deal with them.
Wow, I'm sorry one ran away.
Maybe he's happy. I mean, that's what we like to tell ourselves, because they can burrow, they can get under our fence. I think that's what our original fence, that one got away. And the other one, it's a sad story, and I don't know why I would tell it here, but I will. During the COVID pandemic, we had, I always used to put every year when they came out of hibernation, I would get some kind of coconut core kind of thing that you'd spread around. And it was all ground very nice. It was a cushy landing for them, right? I liked it. But during the pandemic, they said, we can't get that anymore. Here's our new supplier. And so I put that stuff out. It had larger pieces in it. And frankly, it got stuck in his throat.
Oh, no.
It's terrible. It's just the worst thing in the world. And now that I've relived it, I don't know if I can recover during this broadcast here. That's a tough one.
Losing a pet is hard.
It is hard.
It's sometimes harder than losing a person.
Yes.
Particularly
if you think, I should have been smarter about that. But you know what?
I've been there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had outdoor cats for a while until I had 2 fewer cats. And then it was no more outdoor cats. I was living in the Hollywood Hills at the time. And my neighbors were saying, you can't let your cats out here. I was like, they've been outdoor cats for years. They lasted 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
And that was it. No more outdoor cats.
Well,
Never had an
we've
outdoor
clearly
cat.
established, and we're less than 5 minutes in, that
Except
both
when I
of
was a
us
kid.
should not be trusted with pets.
Can't be trusted.
Okay.
I can't be trusted with children either.
Okay, well, there you go.
The national debt just crossed $39 trillion. Money printer's still running. And if you've got a 401k or IRA just sitting there in paper
All
assets,
right, we always let
you might want to ask
these
yourself,
guys
what's
hawk their
actually
wares.
backing that? Gold is up around 35% in the past
We're
year.
using their video
Silver
for good Lord's
over
sake.
125%.
Might as well be able to hawk their wares,
Meanwhile,
right?
major banks are projecting gold could hit $6,300 an ounce and silver $309. Now, I'm not promising you those numbers, but I'm not ignoring them either. I looked into a few companies before I found one I'd actually put my name on. Golden Crest Metals is the one that was straight with me. No call center, no hard sell, just real one-on-one service and honest pricing. Here's what they'll do for you. You can move an existing IRA or 401k into physical gold and silver. No taxes, no penalties, and they'll start you off with a free portfolio review and a free info guide. Zero obligation. Go to goldencrestmetals.com/the-Wi-Files or call 888-949-9172. That's goldencrestmetals.com/the-Wi-Files or call 888-949-9172 for your 100% free info kit. Go to goldencrestmetals.com/the-Wi-Files or call 888-949-9172. That's goldencrestmetals.com/the-Wi-Files or call 888-949-9172 for your 100% free info kit.
Get yourself some gold. You know what? I find it so fascinating what the lengths that AJ will go to do a commercial. I mean, this guy puts like maximum effort, absolute maximum, dresses up like that and everything else. Really cool. And it's sort of a it's a departure from what he does with the goldfish, right? With Hecklefish. those are always good, and they're hilarious. And so I got to give mad props. First of all, to everything. I like how he does his interviews. AJ is the consummate professional. He likes to say that he doesn't run a professional broadcast. I don't run a professional broadcast. He does. He does really great work. Again, link is in the description of the Beyond the Noise channel for this video, and there's also links in the live chat, both live chats. So you can follow along, you can watch it. We're not going to go through the whole video, not even remotely. And then you go over, do AJ a solid, follow him. He does great work. And him and his team, follow him, watch the rest of the video with them. But let's move on.
So we've got broadcast journalism.
Yeah.
How do you end up on TV as a movie critic?
Well, okay, I didn't start as a movie. I went to school at the University of Oregon. Go Ducks, very good football team.
Go Ducks!
All in favor of them. And I went to journalism
college
school.
Football season's
and at some point during journalism school, you have to sort of pick what's your thing. So I went with broadcasting, and I ended up getting a job at the hippie radio station in Eugene, Oregon, and that was a good gig. I mean, that's the first time I ever talked about UFOs in public. I sort of covered the Travis Walton story from afar, if you will.
Wow! So you were on air?
Yeah. I was the morning guy and that thing. But then I got hired at the TV station. Okay, so I became an anchor reporter in Eugene, and I ended up also doing the weather there and the movies, because the thing is, in a small market, it's like you say to yourself, well, who does movie reviews here? And the answer is, well, nobody. You go, I'll do them.
Right.
And, then you get to do them. I remember reviewing Alien was one of my first movies to review. But mostly, anchor reporter kind of thing. And that was a great gig. And then, I came to, I did a short tour of duty in Arizona, in Tucson, and then came to LA as the first CNN correspondent there. And I got to tell you, as you well know, the news business is so interesting because if you're covering news, you are meeting thousands of people, just one person after another. Every day is just crowded with fast getting to know yous. And I found that a lot of times you were either meeting people on the best day of their life or the worst day of their life. Sometimes in the middle, but often on those extremes.
That's true.
It really taught me a lot about drama, comedy, all the things that I use now in a Hollywood script that I might write.
Right. I hadn't considered that, but that's true. So how do you get to sitting with Carl Sagan talking about Voyager?
That's a trippy, wonderful memory for me.
Well, how did you get picked for that?
Okay, here's the thing. I was the CNN correspondent, and the way these things work, you jobs come and go because the person who hired you comes and goes.
Right.
So the news bureau chief at CNN got fired, and so I knew my days were numbered, and they were. And I ended up at PBS in Los Angeles working on an investigative news magazine called Newsbeat. And again, it was a sort of a nightly 30-minute, 60 minutes kind of. It was 30 minutes instead of 60 minutes kind of thing. And I would do one story a week. And I noticed that nobody was really. A lot of the people there were not thinking about space, and I always think about space. So I was like, "Who's your space person here?" Well, nobody. Well, I'll do it, right?
Like the movies.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Just raise your hand and volunteer. So I did, and so I got to cover things like the early space shuttle stuff, and also the Voyager. And Voyager, of course, was the first unmanned thing that we sent that went out of the solar system. But on its way out, it did a short tour of duty past Saturn, and I believe this is the Voyager 2 that I'm talking about at this point. I covered Voyager 1, I think, at CNN. But anyway, 2 was on its way out.
Beeger.
And there was going to be a close encounter, if you will, with Saturn. And this is, and again, I'm just going to have to date myself. I mean, I used to be the youngest guy in the room when I went to Hollywood. Now I'm probably the oldest guy in the room, but that's life, right? Anyway, so the year before I started working there, Carl Sagan had basically owned the station at KCET in Los Angeles because he was doing Cosmos.
Oh,
Right.
he was doing it out of there?
Yeah, that's where he recorded all of
Wow.
this. So when I came to work there, it was like, oh, yes. You know, they didn't have plaques for Carl Sagan or anything, but everybody knew that he had put them on the map. It was a pretty big deal. So when they were about to have the encounter, I pitched them that they should do something called Saturn and Beyond. It would be sort of covering the live flyby and then talking about the future of space and that kind of thing. And they said, well, that's good. And I said, and we'll ask Carl Sagan. And because I thought, the guy's got to owe KCET something for putting him on the map like that. And so I just called him up and said, you want to do this thing? And he said, sure, I'll do it. So with that in mind, and he became part of that show. But here's the sort of my favorite year part of it. I was an on-air reporter and kind of a substitute anchor. But
Man, is it that easy? It's so hard to get people to do interviews. Really, especially there's we were talking about the missing 411 2 weeks ago, week ago, whatever it was, whatever Saturday it was. The Yankee and I did that. I think it was last Saturday. And we talked about David Paulides. Now, I don't mean to be an ass. I am, but I don't mean to be an ass. But David Paulides is. I've watched his shows. He has a YouTube channel, and I've watched him, and he said, I'm not going on some rinky-dink channel. It's not going to help me any. It doesn't do anything for me, so I'm not going to do that. And that is typically how a lot of people are, especially when they get any sort of notoriety. It becomes very difficult. Imagine being able to just call up Carl Sagan and say, hey, Carl, want to come on over? We'll cover the Saturn thing. Come on over. Let's go. And he just said, yeah, let's do it. Billions and billions. We get Carl. It would be that would have been fascinating. And Carl Sagan, while I have plenty of issues with some of his beliefs, that's neither here nor there. He was incredibly significant. I watched Carl Sagan all the time when I was a kid with my pops. An icon, really. Look, I disagree with Trump on a lot of things. Still like the guy. I disagree with Carl Sagan on a lot of things, but I still like the guy. But that would just be fascinating to be able to just simply go, hey, Carl, come on. Hey, we'll have a few. Come on over. We'll watch the Saturn stuff and we'll hang out. We'll have a couple of drinks and talk about space and stuff. Of course, I'm being eccentric or retarded, but that would be really cool. And the idea that he could actually get that is very interesting. I don't know what level of reputation Bryce had at the time that this was going on, but man, oh man, there are people. Yankee and I talk about it all the time. There are people that I want to get on and do interviews on Beyond the Noise. Have I reached out? No. But I'm a little gun shy. But there you have the people like the David Paulides, whom it would be fascinating to be able to sit there and talk about. I own all of the 411 movies. I've watched plenty of his updates that he does. I would love to speak to David Paulides, but he has straight up said on his own channel, don't contact me. If you got some rinky-dink little channel, I'm not going to talk to you. And that's kind of one of those things where you kind of go, all right. You don't want to be like, all right, dickhead, arrogant prick. But I can also understand where every Tom, Dick, and Harry, or every Tom's Harry Dick tries to get a hold of him and say, hey, yeah, I got like 10 subscribers, but I'd like you to come on and we can talk about the missing 411. And the truth is that having somebody like that on nowadays will get you views, right? It'll bring people to your channel. But that I think it would be fascinating. I'm sorry, I go on. It would be so great to have been able to talk to Carl Sagan, even if I disagree with a bunch of the things that he believes.
Main anchor was a guy named Cleet Roberts, and Cleet was sort of a mentor of mine, an early news mentor, right? And Cleet was the most respected journalist in Los Angeles at the time. I mean, he'd done it all, and he was toward the end of his career, and we would often sit on the set before we would go on and sort of just catch up and talk. And I was out there covering things, and he was stuck behind the anchor desk, in his opinion, right? He remembered the good old days, and he was such a great guy. And he goes, you remind me of myself when I was your age, which is the most lovely compliment any famous mentor could ever say to you. That was lovely. So I was producing Saturn Beyond for Cleet to star in, and to host, not to star in, but he was going to be the host. And about 3 days before we were due to go on, I mean, I wanted to anchor it, but whatever, I was the producer. Mm-hmm. 3 days before I'm about to, we're going to produce this thing, Cleet ends up in a contract dispute with KCET. And he says, I'm not going to host that thing. Forget it. If we don't have a deal, I'm not doing it. Let Bryce do it. And he wasn't in a real contract dispute.
He just threw that to you.
He threw it to me.
Oh, that's
it's the
so
greatest, lovely thing.
That is so awesome.
This story is kind of intriguing because we get through the show, and you know what it's like. You're a host, and by a host, not only are you hosting the show, but you're sort of hosting the event, right? So Sagan comes on. We talk live about the Saturn and the space program and exploration of the solar system and all this stuff. And then the show's over. And it's like, well, thank you very much. He's a lovely guy. He shakes hands with the crew. It's all that. And I say, I'll walk you to your car if you'd like, because I'm the host, right? I'm hosting him. And so he had to get to JPL to do some kind of interview, I think for Nightline with Ted Koppel or something. So we walk out there, and as we're walking out there, I see his car. I'm driving a Datsun B210 at this point, right? Which is not the sexiest car around. This guy has some
which
kind
became
of
Nissan, if I'm not
foreign
mistaken.
roadster convertible. I thought, wow, that's so cool. I would love that. And I don't know why I said this, but I just said, Dr. Sagan, I have a question or two about the whole UFO subject.
Uh-oh.
And he suddenly looks at me and he goes, yes, with that kind of,
sure,
please.
Okay, so real quick, he thinks it's bullshit. I'm just gonna throw that out there right now. I haven't seen this interview, so I have no idea what the hell's gonna happen. But Carl Sagan, maybe I'll have egg on my face here, but from everything I ever heard from Carl Sagan, UFOs are just bullshit. We'll see. Let's see what he says.
Go on. And I just said, well, listen, I just know that you've said many times that the universe is teeming with life. And yet at the same time, you're not a believer so publicly in UFOs because you say the distances are too great that they couldn't possibly be here. But at the same time, you've talked about how an alien civilization could be so in advance of us that, we'd look like primitives. So how is it that you don't consider the fact that if the universe is teeming with life, some of them are a million years in advance of us technologically, and they understand physics better than us, or they have different lifespans? Why don't you consider that they might be here?
The stone's on you. Wow.
Well, I was young. What's he, whatever.
Wow. I'm glad you. What did he say?
Well, he just, he looked at me like, and your point is? I said, well, no, I was trying to be nice and all that. And we had that back and forth for about 15 minutes. And the specific answer to your question, what do you have to say? I wish I could remember the exact quotes, but he stuck with this point of view, which was, nobody's coming here.
Okay, this is the perfect spot. The perfect spot for me to intervene and open my big fat fucking mouth and give my opinion. A lot of times when people just dismiss this idea. First of all, let me just throw it out there that I'm completely fine with the idea that maybe there's an ancient civilization that lives at the bottom of the ocean now, that had technology. Then this is what the UFOs are that we're seeing. There's a lot of conjecture going on with that at the moment, and I think it's fascinating. It's fun to think about. It's cool. All of it's fun because we don't know shit, because nobody wants to tell us anything. And that's the thing that pisses me off the most. Nobody wants to talk to us. Nobody wants to tell us anything. We're plebs. Just go, plebs. You don't need to know. Trust me, need to know basis, and you don't need to. But let's go beyond that. What physics is continuing to find out, and especially when you start, and let me tell you, I got my physics degree yesterday. I am an expert. But when they start getting into these fascinating exotic physics, which I am completely and truly fascinated by, and I know nothing about and don't understand shit. I watch a lot of videos about it and listen to the back and forth, and I find it so fascinating. Some of the most intriguing people in science in history have suggested that we don't understand. That we have this sort of rudimentary, primitive idea. Even the most advanced physics that we have is still very rudimentary. Keeping that in mind, let's just do, this is what I always do to myself when I start to, I again am of the opinion that most of the UFOs that we see are human, and I'll stick with that. But let's just veer off of that for a moment. Here, as a matter of fact, we'll do this real quick, and then we'll go back to this. Blah. Wow. I hit the wrong thing. See, I'm not used to using EV Mux. I should be. I'm just here it is. Okay. Damn it, I got sidetracked. Okay, so just consider for a moment the idea of what the world was like 100 years ago. 100 years ago. 1926. Were there microwaves? Nope. Were there refrigerators? Nope. Were there televisions? Nope. Was there cell phones? Nope. Was there PCs? Were there video games? Were there consoles? Were there... Just go down the list. The car was still a damn... It was Stone Age. In comparison to now, we have instant communication across the planet. which was always thought to be impossible because of line of sight. And yet here we are. We're talking in 100 years, the number of things that have been accomplished, the number of things that we've discovered, the scientific breakthroughs. Add another 100 years. Where does that put us? Our understanding of physics, with the help of AI. AI is going to help us. Look, I not to get into the AI argument back and forth, something that I love to talk about, but I view it as a tool. So let's just look at it from the aspect of a tool. If AI is a tool and it can do things quicker than we can, that's kind of medial shit. If AI can help with research on different medical discoveries, propulsion discoveries, physics. Imagine in 5 years where we'll be, let alone 100. Now, how about 1,000? And according to the astrophysicists out there, who I'm sure know everything, we're in one of the younger parts of our own galaxy, let alone the universe itself. Our star is middle-aged for its type and yada, yada, yada. Imagine. See, this idea, I don't know what Carl Sagan and people like him are thinking when they say nobody's coming here. Like, there's nothing to be interested in. It's all you have to do is look at your immediate surroundings in the solar system and you understand that there's no water. There's no life. There may be microbial life. There may be, I don't know, algae on the side of a fucking rock that's floating through space. There might be itty-bitty tiny things that technically are classified as life, but it's not life, and it surely isn't water. And we, in our primitive state, can view planets around other stars and know what's in the atmosphere of it. And be able to go, that's peculiar. Think about this. So why is it that it just in our own solar system, which has well over 1 billion suns in it, and let me guess, we're so unique. We're the only advanced conscious life form in the galaxy. Sure we are. And now, okay, it's so convoluted. And if you were at, if some civilization where we are on the other side of the damn galaxy, and they just started looking at stars in their local area, or they're in the galaxy, what would they be looking for? A planet that exhibits the sort of atmospheric signatures of life. Earth screams it. It screams it. It says, hey, life here. That's what it does. That's what it says. I can't, what, there's all these big articles that come out that say, oh, we found a planet with oxygen in its atmosphere. This is a candidate for life. We're still, according to people like Carl Sagan, we're still primitive. Even though we're creating AI, we're creating vast networks. Now we're starting to implant despite whether it's a good or a bad thing, implant devices into our brains that can connect, and people who have lost use of their limbs can now neurally connect with a computer and do all these different things. We are on the brink. We're almost tripping over ourselves in how quickly we are advancing. I think, and this is, look, maybe this won't age well. That's fine. I've thought about this a lot. I've had a lot of conversations with people who are smarter than me by vast quantities. And people that are of the same wavelength as myself. I think that what we're going to find out is this idea of vast distances isn't true. I think there's going to be something that we're missing in physics. As it is, that they've already talked about lensing that occurs. There's lensing in our own atmosphere because the spherical nature of the planet. You can detect that lensing. You can see how it affects things on the other side of it. It's why when the sun goes down, it gets gigantic. And then it's up here, it's like itty bitty tiny because of lensing in the atmosphere and this kind of shit. I'm wondering if the distances that we see aren't going to be able to be traversed because we discover that the distances aren't what we thought they were. Consider this. If you shrink yourself small enough, you know that you can move through anything. You could go right through a person and not touch a single cell if you shrunk yourself small enough. And if you got really big, you could stomp on that person. You could take one step and what would be 100 meters would just be a tiny little stumble step. Squash that fucker. So what I'm thinking is that, and this is all, of course, me just being a retard, but I think that at some point that there's going to be a discovery that there's a way to cross these distances. And there is a look, if you go with the whole narrative that's out there, if you listen to all the different people who go off into La La Land, which I love, by the way, that's the place to be, because that's where thinking is fun. You know, not stagnant like in modern society, like in all society, right? Gotta pay the bills, gotta get some food, gotta go to bed, gotta get up, gotta go to work, gotta pay some bills, gotta get some food. You know what I'm saying? So life can be extremely stagnating. But when you get into the really fun stuff where you're just exercising your mind and thinking, whether or not you fully understand what the fuck you're thinking in the first place doesn't really matter. You're exercising your mind and you're exploring possibilities. If you go into some of the stranger ideas out there, you know, the David Icks and the Alex Jones and all these different people who, you know, aren't afraid to tumble down the rabbit holes of lizard people or, you know, the majestic whites or the blue lights or the grays and all the different species of alien that supposedly are visiting our planet. The Nordics. Listen, I'm not opposed to that being real. That could absolutely be true. Why couldn't it? Just because it sounds like fairy tale. There's a lot of things that sound like a fairy tale until you make it real. you make it real through discovery and through science and through work and through, I mean, a lot of the things that they like Star Trek, for example. One of the things I watched with my pops all the time in my youth, Star Trek, a lot of the things there that were science fiction are becoming science fact today. I think that it's very small-minded and short-sighted. That's not to say that anybody's an idiot. I am the biggest amongst the idiots. I am a gigantic moron. That doesn't mean I'm not going to think about this stuff because I enjoy it. It's fun. It's interesting. Makes my balls tingle. I'm just kidding. But it is. It's fun to consider. That consideration leads to discovery, especially for people who are interested, who are enthused. They want to make these things happen. And, you know, a lot of times people don't have a significant background, but they make sure that they go and they get the necessary knowledge to be able to carry out their discoveries. I just think and again, I loved Carl Sagan, and this has not been a dig on Carl Sagan, although it sounds exactly like a dig on Carl Sagan. Sorry, Carl, you were awesome, kindest guy in the world, and very, very intelligent. But the dismissiveness when it comes to the UFO phenomenon. You know, I've heard it said, and it's true. If 1% of the UFO sightings or reports are true, that's more than enough. That means 1% of them are true, which means it's not a hoax. It's not misidentification. It's not bullshit. 1%. I don't care if it's 0.5%, 0.1%. That means that at least part of this is real. To what degree? They don't want to tell us. But I do find it to be a shame that the people out there like the Carl Sagans, like even Albert Einstein, whom I absolutely love, by the way. I adore Einstein, and, you know, he mathematically proved the existence of God. But he was skeptical about a lot of things. And at that time, there was no real understanding about subatomic physics. Right? So then things that he believed then now is like common in the physics society. They're just like, that Einstein, he knew some things, but he didn't really know much. But that's because they have the benefit of science today, the progression that's been made. He doesn't have that benefit. Neither did Carl Sagan. Neither did Hawkins. And I listen. I've said before. I had Universe in a Nutshell. I read it. Hawkins demonstrated that we could travel backwards in time. So, using physics. So it's just a matter of time before these things become possible. The idea that an alien civilization somewhere else wouldn't look at the Earth and think, oh, we need to go there. It's ludicrous. Because we've looked at enough planets already as a species. We have discovered enough planets, and we've looked at the composition of the atmosphere and their distance to the star that they orbit, and yada, 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 all the different scenarios. And we've gone, not there, not there, not, ooh, look at this. hydrogen, oxygen, CO2, methane, all the telltale signs of life. Let's go there. I think that would be what most people would probably consider. Let's go there. Let's if you're being reasonable. So, all right, I've gone off on enough of a tangent. I'll shut up now.
That's not how it works, was in essence. And I said, but that's an opinion, right? But you're saying that the UFO world doesn't make sense because they deal in opinions and not facts. Well, isn't that an opinion too? You know, I was a little, I was probably crazy, but he took it well enough, right? I mean, we had a nice back and forth. And about 15 minutes in, he looks at his watch and he goes, well, I'm due at JPL. And he got in that lovely roadster of his and motored off, and I waved at him, and last time I saw him. But listen, the guy was brilliant. I think he was wrong about UFOs.
Well, this is the 80s. When you asked him that question at the time, were you aware that he had a bit of an arc?
Yes.
That he had evolved?
Yes. And I didn't know what you're referring to, that in his early career, he was aware of UFOs.
Very
and
open.
Thought aliens might possibly have come here to explore or something. Absolutely. Great point. And while I was aware of that, I wasn't aware of it enough to sort of call him on it. Right. That would have, because he certainly knew more about his career and life than I did at that point. So I stuck with sort of the more esoteric part of it. But I did kind of get my revenge on that. I did a TV series for NBC called Dark Skies, and it took place in the 1960s during an alien invasion. And we can talk more about that because that has other interesting things. But here's the Sagan angle.
I want to save the good stuff.
Of course. Here's the Sagan angle. Here's the Sagan angle.
Yeah.
It had all these real characters in it. So toward the end of the season, when NBC had told us, well, you're probably not getting picked up again, so just do whatever you want. And Columbia TV, which was producing it, said, do whatever you want, but don't spend a dime more than your budget. Okay. So my partner Brent Friedman and I said, okay, well, what do we want to do with this? And so in our final 2 episodes, we introduced Carl Sagan as a character. And our whole series took place at Majestic 12, the guys that were in charge of the cover-up. And so we made Sagan the chief scientist of the Majestic 12 cover-up in kind of an homage to Donald Menzel, who was the earlier debunker, right? Who everybody thought he was
debunker in quotes.
Yes, because he ended up, his name's on the Majestic 12 documents.
Yes, it is.
Right? So we made him a guy that got picked up by Majestic 12. And he's all pissed off because they've kidnapped him, basically. And they say to him, you're in no danger. You're in no danger at all. But if you'd really like to know what's going on, we can tell you, in which case we'll keep driving and we'll bring you in and we'll show you what's going on. But if you need to get out right now, that's fine. We'll pull the car over. The choice is entirely yours, Doctor. And so he made the deal with the devil. He said, if you'll tell me everything, I'll be your debunker. And that's what we said about him.
And I think Sagan made that deal too.
I don't think we were wrong.
No.
I think we were right. I think if you really track him, it sounds to me like you have. So if you track that career of his, you do say there is some inconsistency between where he starts and where he ends.
Right. And that shift, the timing coordinates with his rise in fame as well, which is very interesting.
Yes.
Like his exposure increased.
He bought himself some exposure by talking to
your books, especially AD. It's very prescient, like almost like you have a crystal ball.
It's like we picked a racehorse that came in.
Yeah, it certainly is. Last thing on journalism.
Yeah.
You were an award-winning investigative journalist. You have a favorite story?
Well, the one I won the awards for has nothing to do with UFOs or paranormal or any of that. Space was my beat, but I covered a lot of other things. And we did a story It was called The People versus Dr. Minaya, I believe, is the one that we won the awards for. And that was just one where we found a doctor, an eye doctor, who patients would come in and he would tell them they had a cataract and charge them for it. And they'd already had cataracts. They've already had the surgery and stuff. He would just tell people whatever he had to tell them to get them to have the surgery and charge them for it, even if there was no need for surgery. And so that was that was one where I got to play the Mike Wallace role, where I was chasing Dr. Minaya down the sidewalk going, Dr. Minaya, isn't it true? That kind of thing. And but I will say this. Investigative reporting is such a valuable thing. And my hat is off to everybody who's doing it, about the UFO topic for sure, but all on everything. I mean, investigative reporting speaks truth to power. It holds people accountable. It's a really good thing, and certainly the ability that people have to be a good investigative reporter is so valued right now. I mean, we could use more of them, and frankly, it's expensive. That's what was so brilliant about that year and a half where I got to work at Newsbeat. It felt like doing the Lord's work, right? Because instead of doing, at CNN, I would do 3 stories in a single day.
Wow.
But at PBS, I did 1 story in a week. And so that allowed me to do all the great stuff that you do as an investigator. What does an investigative reporter do? You pick up the phone, you call people, you talk to them, and you write it down. And then you look at it later and go, interesting. And then you call somebody else up and you say, can I come over and talk to you about something? And then when you're finally getting it all done, you put them on camera, and then you cut it up and you give it to the people. I'll only say this about it. The things I learned working at that PBS show Newsbeat have been so valuable to me in terms of all the work that I've done since. And there's nothing I have done since that I didn't learn something that benefited me from, which like even on creating a TV show, excuse me, one of the things you want to be able to do is make sure it sounds authentic. Well, how do you make something authentic? Do you make something authentic because you write a movie, say, about lawyers because you've seen a lawyer show? That's not authentic. Authentic is to go talk to lawyers or doctors or whatever. So what investigative reporting teaches you is, don't get your information off the internet these days as a primary source. Create your own primary sources first. That's why I respect some of the people that have done some work in this. My first Need to Know partner, Ross Coulthart, has certainly done some excellent work on this. And George Knapp, I think anyone who cares about this topic is just in awe of what George has done.
He's the best to ever do it.
He's phenomenal. And so I think those guys have really helped take us. Look, Ross gets his own accolades for whatever. Let's focus on George for a second, because George goes back and right here in Las Vegas where we're recording, George didn't take no for an answer. He has an incredible memory, but he also asks people questions. He listens to the answers. I've been on Coast to Coast with him a few times over the years. And first of all, he's a great interviewer, but he also listens to everything everybody says. So it's not like you say something and then he goes, okay, now our next, he doesn't do that.
Nope.
He's listening to what you're saying and he wants to know more about it because why? A good reporter is insatiably curious and won't take no for an answer and doesn't tolerate bullshit very well. And that describes that man. That's why he's a friend of mine, and I couldn't hold a candle to him as a reporter. He's just the best.
Yeah, and it always has been. And even when he's talking to, I don't want to use the word crazy, but the more out there stories, he's always respectful. He's asking good questions. His famous John Lear interview is fascinating. With some of the stuff John says is like, wow, but George just kind of leans in and asks the right questions. It's fascinating.
Nothing wrong with letting people tell you their story. The only thing wrong is believing it if you don't have...
100%.
Right? So, yeah, of course you got to listen to this. But what I think, another thing that makes, let's call it the Knapp style, because he's not the only one practicing this day. There are other great people who are doing journalism on this topic. And the thing is, it doesn't matter how outrageous something is or isn't. You have to still say to yourself, well, is there a way for me to validate this? You don't take anything at face value. You have to say, there's more to the story than what this person just told me, because that's the other thing you learn doing journalism. You go, there are a lot of different points of view about things. And one of the things that I found so frustrating about, network journalism or just mainstream journalism in broadcasting is that because the time is so short, and this applies not just to long form, but it certainly applies to regular reporting. And this is my criticism, and it's been particularly strong about UFOs, which is the basic way to cover a controversial story in broadcasting is to find somebody who says yes, somebody who says no, interview them both, and then do a stand-up where you say, some say yes, some say no, I say maybe. That's what qualifies as a journalistically balanced report. But sometimes a story isn't balanced. Sometimes there's actually some facts that support saying yes or no.
Sure.
And we don't see that often.
No, we don't.
Certainly not in local markets. You really don't.
No, you don't. I guess one of my idols or heroes is Art Bell.
Oh.
Because not only would he
Art
be
Bell.
respectful of the person telling the story, he just had such an instinct for spotting the story and knowing, all right, I've got a beginning, middle, and end. Here's how we're going to tease it out. He saw it, miles away.
Art Bell. I definitely want to do a little tiny commentary on him at the moment, because Art Bell I listened to for years, working late night, going out for drives. Good buddy of mine. We'd go out and we'd puff little greeny, whatever. And listen to Art Bell. Art Bell. The thing I loved about Art Bell is that he could wing it. I mean, you could tell that he could wing it, unless we come to find out that all of the callers that he had call in were staged. He was extremely good. He was witty. He was right on top of it. He could jump right into it. So even if he had a caller that would call in that was like kind of out there doing talking about some weird stuff, he was able to just jump right in and converse with these people and perpetuate it, make it legit, right? But of course, I am a deep fan of Art Bell. I think Art Bell brought to broadcasting. He legitimized some a portion of broadcasting that is even to this day shunned. He made it okay to talk about the weird, the out there, right? And he such professionalism that when someone would call in and was just out of their mind with some weird out there story, he was like the master of being able to just go with the flow, go along with the conversation, go and sort of kind of feed it. Not in a way that he was exciting the other person. He was legitimizing the other person. Even if, and he has said numerous, before he passed, unfortunately, he had said that I don't believe, 2/3 of the people that I talk to, but he respected that enough that he lent credence to what they were talking about by being respectful of even people that he thought were batshit crazy. He still, he respected his audience, and he respected these people that would call in. I could never do a call-in show. That's why just mad props to Art Bell, because doing a call-in show, I'm a trained broadcaster. I have certifications in broadcasting. Doing call-in shows are incredibly difficult, especially if you don't have a screener. And Art famously didn't have a screener. Maybe later on he did, but I know early on he didn't. So he'd get these crazy people that would call in with these outrageous, just unbelievable things. And he would respect them, and he would converse with them, and he would encourage them to continue to speak, even though in the back of his head he's going, "This guy's crazy." Didn't care. I have just mad respect for Art Bell, and I just wanted to chime in there while they were talking about Art Bell. He's a hero of mine. The broadcasting world would not be what it is if it weren't for the likes of Art Bell and Alex Jones. And regardless of whether or not you like Alex Jones' politics, that doesn't matter. It was the boundaries that he pushed, the same way that Art Bell did. It doesn't matter. It's not about the politics of any of it. Art Bell was pretty far left. Alex Jones is pretty far right. I love them both because they gave people like me the ability, what would you call that? It's not even the ability. It's just they I don't want to overuse the terminology, but lent credence to people who just come on and speak their mind. So mad props to Art Bell. By the way, I'll shut up and let these guys continue talking. We're about 26 minutes into the video. We'll go a little bit longer. Then I'm going to end the broadcast and I do a gaming stream or something in a bit. Let's go further.
An interesting thing about Art Bell. By the way, I know Art Bell, or knew Art Bell, and I was on his show. I think in '96, I was on Art Bell's show, and I put him on Dark Skies. I made Art Bell a member of Majestic 12.
I forgot about that.
He was a member. He played William S. Paley,
That's
the
right.
head of CBS.
He talked about it forever. Now I remember that. Wow.
And listen, I don't think Art would take exception to what I'm about to say. The difference between Art and George Knapp is Art was a entertainer with a show. George is a journalist who sometimes is on a show, right? And Art would let things stand just because, well, I mean, that's what they say, right? So on the show that I was doing with Art Bell, I was on to talk about, this is one of my first interviews ever on the UFO topic. I wasn't interviewing him. He was interviewing me because of Dark Skies. But as the show started, somebody had called in saying, I'm seeing some lights up in Monterey or something. I don't even remember the location, but it's the California coast. And Art just said, well, we're going to be following this story very carefully tonight. And so every time we'd go to a commercial break, he'd say, and now the lights seem to be down. I mean, and it was a show. Is it listed in any books as a great UFO sighting today? I don't think so.
Probably not.
No. But listen, classic radio guy.
Yes.
Really good at what he did. Great voice.
Just everything.
And he stood his ground, and he was good guy. I mean, he wrote a book, I think The Quickening. I mean, he was a great guy.
Quickening was a scary book.
And I mean, loved Art. And by the way, putting him on Majestic 12, I remember when my partner Brent and I thought we would do that, and I went, well, he's like, well, why would Art Bell do that? I said, it's ironic. It's subversive. Let me call him. And I called him up, and there was this kind of long pause. And then he says, I think the first thing he said is, do I get to keep the mustache?
Of course he did.
He didn't. We made him shave it.
You made him shave it?
I think that was the thing. anyway, it was fun. He saw the joke. I mean, which is a lovely thing for someone to not take themselves so seriously. They can't do something like that. I think it gave him fun. He and his wife of the time came to the set, and we hung out all day, and he had a great time. Yeah. And to be honest with you, did a very good performance.
Sure, because he was a performer.
He's a performer.
And what a great nod to the audience who spotted
Absolutely.
him. They had to just go nuts for it.
Well, that's the kind of thing where 90% of that audience had no knowledge of anything, just another actor, in a scene. But for the 10% who were sort of UFO curious, they knew, and they thought it was pretty wild.
I love it. I put those jokes in my
UFO
shows all the
curious,
time
is
that
that a
nobody
new-
gets except for that.
Is that a new
sliver, but
terminology?
It's so special to them.
Because, good stuff can just work on a couple of
Sure.
levels. And as
Sure.
long as one of the levels hits most of the people, you're okay.
Yeah. So how did you become what got you interested in space and that sort of thing? Does this go back to Dad and the Apollo?
That's a good, yes. There's two stories here. One is space, one is UFOs.
Let's hear it.
Talk space first.
Okay.
though. When I was, I grew up in Hillsboro, Oregon, which is a suburb of Portland. And when I
I
was
lived
15
in
years old,
Hillsboro.
I was living large.
I worked
I had
in
started
Hillsboro,
working as a
Oregon.
fry cook at the Arctic Circle drive-in. And I started at $1.10 an hour, and I had worked my way up to $1.35.
Wow.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool. And I got to be a fry cook, eat all the burgers and fries you wanted. It was sweet work,
Yep.
right? But I was interested in space because during the 60s, it was our article of faith for my family. I was just a little kid, but we would get up at 4 a.m. on Mercury flights and Gemini flights, and everybody would watch the TV together. So I sort of had this burned in. My father was a history teacher. So I had this idea burned in. Well, okay.
So Dad wanted to get up
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and get everybody up.
He got everybody up. It's like he would come in at like 4:30 or something. Okay, they're going to launch in half an hour or whatever it was, right? And so we would all watch it. All right. Flash forward to 1969 when, again, Bryce is living large, making big bucks, clearing almost $10 a day.
Wow.
Think about that. Yeah, not bad for a 15-year-old. So I was working, the manager at the Arctic Circle was a Basque separatist named Mariano Bilbao. Okay? And Mariano was a tough, he's the best kind of hardworking immigrant you'd want.
What's
you
a
know?
Basque separatist?
He wanted the Basque region of Spain to separate from Spain.
Oh, I thought they all want that.
Do they? I don't know. At the time, listen.
They're the descendants of Atlantis.
Okay.
They want to be their own thing, man.
All right. Well, then I withdraw the character. He was just a Spanish immigrant, we'll call it. But
No, he was Basque.
he was Basque.
A Basque
Hardworking
separatist.
guy, though.
I love
All right?
it. That's good shit.
So he put up the schedule, and on July 20th, 1969, yours truly was on the schedule doing the main cooking at the Arctic Circle. And I went to Mariano and said, hey, the moon landing, can I get the night off? And he said, no, the schedule, no, you can't have the night off. Why? Well, I want to see the moon. You can't get out of this to watch TV. And I said, okay, could we put a TV in the Arctic Circle? Put a TV in a restaurant? No. And I said, well, what about a radio? Radio, stop talking, right? He was done. And so I resigned myself. I was not going to see it. Okay. So I report to work on July 20th, 1969. And it's about 40 minutes before Armstrong and Aldrin are going to be on the moon's surface. And I just can't handle it, man. I just cannot handle it. And I call up my dad. And the thing you have to understand is my dad was one of those tough guys. Imagine the guy from Wonder Years. That was my dad kind of guy. So this was a Hail Mary of the highest order that I was about to parlay here. But I called him up and I said, Dad, I just really want to see the moon landing. Can you come and get me? And then I take the phone and I'm holding it out here because I know he's going to be screaming. He's going to be saying, you made a deal. You have to be responsible, et cetera, right?
Sounds about right.
And then he says, what does he say? He says, you'll be fired. And I said, Yeah, I know. And
Worth it!
long pause, and he goes, I'll be right down. So Dad comes down, picks me up, takes me back
Worth it.
home. We sit around the TV. We watch the moon landing. About 35 minutes into the moon landing, he turns to me and he goes, I think it's time for you to go face the music.
Mm-hmm.
Puts me back in the car, drives me down to the Arctic Circle. I get out. By this point, Mariano Bilbao was there because he's been called in that Bryce has abandoned his post.
Sure.
Right. And he does as expected. He fires me on the spot. And my father, God bless him, I mean, because this was not his style. He goes to Mariano and he goes, you are making a very big mistake because this is going to go down as the defining moment of our times. And you are always going to regret what you did tonight. Then he turns to me and goes, son, get in the car. And he drove me home. And of course,
That's
I
a
never
good
worked at
dad.
the Arctic Circle again.
Good
Wow, your
dad.
dad was right.
He was right.
And he had an instinct for how important it was. That it's more important than being a fry cook.
Absolutely.
We need him
Now,
to see
I have
this.
to say, I mean, that was a tough one, though, because, I kid about the salary and all that, but, there were lessons being learned.
Oh, yeah.
Having a job at a young age and all that.
Oh yeah,
So, but these things happen. These things happen.
they do. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about how Hollywood enters the picture.
I love it.
Be right
Let's
back.
do that.
Before we get to Hollywood, we want to talk about your basement experience.
Well, listen, I was thrilled to go to the basement to talk to you because the way I came to actually first really appreciate the UFO topic involves a basement. Okay?
Okay.
I think when I was like 12 or 13, my family didn't have a lot of money or anything. And there were no video games. So there weren't a lot of things for me and my friends to do but ride bikes and, that kind of stuff.
Amen.
But we came up with a
Hallelujah.
way to have some fun. We would go down to my parents' basement because, I don't know, nobody has basements in Southern California where I live now, but they had basements back then. So we went into the basement, and my parents had kept every issue of Look and Life magazines, okay, in the basement. And they were just moldering away in the basement, nothing really happening to them. When my friends and I came up with a reuse purpose, we would take these are extended format magazines, and we would take them and we would roll them tight, right? And they would become like lightsabers.
Oh,
and we
yeah,
would
you
have
could beat the
magazine
absolute
fights
shit
in the
out of
basement
people with that
where
shit.
you would hit each other's magazines.
Absolutely.
And then the guy whose paper would be flying and everything, and the guy won who disabled his opponent's magazine. Now, I admit, but at least it was environmentally friendly, right?
Right.
You got to at
Right.
least say that. Okay, so we're down there having a basement battle, and I pick a magazine up and I start to roll it up, and then I realize there's this kind of cute French actress on the front cover, okay? And her name was Cecile Aubry, and it was a Life magazine from June 26, 1950. I was not alive during that, of course, but these are old magazines. And so I stop because I'm 13, and I'm just starting to be interested in women.
Of course you stop.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is interesting.
Hot take!
So, I find her.
I'm surprised
I
they
open it
didn't
up
put a
and I'm looking
picture.
to see this Cecile Aubry, who I think is like some kind of, she's being promoted as this French ingenue kind of thing, right? And I find the article, and there's all these pictures of Cecile Aubry.
Does it open this way?
No, it did
No,
not.
no, okay,
I wish it
okay,
had.
okay.
That would come later, but that's a story we don't need to cover here in this. And I wrote down this quote because it's so interesting. They described her as frisky, pert, sugar and spice bundle of adolescence.
Love it.
Yeah. How can you beat that?
Right.
I mean, so, my friends and I were looking at that, and then we're going to get back onto the, after the battlefield. And as I'm closing up the magazine to roll it up, something catches my eye. And in that magazine is a picture of the McMinnville UFO photos. Remember those?
Sure.
From 1950. There's two of them. And the Trents from McMinnville, Oregon,
They really try to debunk that UFO. And what did they say? It was a hubcap? It's one of the first ones I remember from my youth. They've never debunked that. There are people that have made claims. They've never been able to debunk that. And what's fascinating about that UFO, we back up here just a little bit. Right? You see here at the bottom what it's doing. If you look at it, you'll see it like this. And then there's another picture where it's the face of it is towards you. This is what I saw. This is what I saw outside of my house with my son's mother in 2005, September 2005. Clear day. We saw 6 of them. And what I described was that the way they sat in the air was they went like this. And if you look at that UFO, and when you see the different pictures of it, you got that ass end of it there. And then the next picture of it is like this. Very, very interesting. I believe that's real. There's no definitive evidence either way, but I believe that's real. Because I saw one that looked just like, I saw 6 of them that looked just like that. Clear blue sky, 10:30 in the morning on a Sunday in September 2005.
Actually took these pictures on a camera that the guy had. His name was Trent, and the article is called Farmer Trent's Flying Saucer.
Are these the one where you see the telephone poles in front of it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And in fact, I'm sure probably on the video version of this, you'll probably show people what they look like.
Sure.
They're pretty great photos.
Yes.
Anyway, my friends and I stop, and we're like, what is this? Because the thing that's so great about those photos, and I'm kind of obsessed by them over the years, is that they're either true or they're not. They're either a hubcap suspended or they're actually a flying saucer that's better than anything the government's been releasing right now, where you're actually looking at it. And there aren't a lot of ways to fake those flying saucers in those photos. And they have stood the test of time.
They have.
They have been reviewed by commissions. Bruce Maccabee did a whole study on them. I mean, they stand the test of time. But what's interesting and gathered the attention of me and my friends is that we lived just 20 miles from McMinnville, 20, 30 miles from McMinnville. This was local. So we're looking at these 2 pictures of UFOs and going, damn, this is almost more interesting than Aubrey.
Almost.
Right? Almost, not quite.
Right.
And we're 13.
Right, it's up there.
But it was
right here.
Yeah. That's what we thought. And we go, and every time my parents and I would drive to the Oregon coast to, go to the beach or whatever, you drove through McMinnville. They have a big UFO festival there right now. And so that's where I started to first say, what is this? What's going on?
How did Life cover that story?
Respectfully,
they did.
It was only a single page. I think it has one big blow up of one of them.
Thank you,
and
Greg
a smaller
Ohio.
of
I
another, and has a
appreciate
picture of Farmer Trent with his camera. Right. The thing is, I
wonder how
went
long
to high
that's
school
been muted.
with people that in their later lives, provided health care for the Trents, and everybody always said about the Trents, these people, are pretty well salt of the earth. They ain't making stuff up. But more than that, if this blows my mind, because today, of course, we all have phones, we take a zillion photos, right? But He comes out there, he's got a camera with a fresh roll of film in it, right? I mean, he may have taken a few pictures on it, and he takes these 2 photos. Well, what does he do? He doesn't run to the local pharmacy with the developing thing and get them developed. No, he holds on to them for a few months because he's a frugal man. And he doesn't develop them until he's used up the entire
The whole
roll.
roll, right?
But those photos became the biggest things. And to this day, I think they stand the test of time. I urge anyone to look at them and say, what's the deal with that? Because here's the thing. They're not orbs.
No.
They're nuts and bolts.
Yes.
Something is flying in McMinnville, Oregon in May of 1950 that is anomalous.
Yep. So this is less than 3 years from Kenneth Arnold and
Yes.
Roswell. So the
Yes.
propaganda machine is not in full effect yet.
Correct. And again, I'm sure people had their own interpretations as they always would, but life at that time was not into debunking or anything. I think they portrayed it like People magazine might have portrayed it later. It was like, here's an interesting story, right?
Sure.
But they put it in there because they thought that it was a really good photo.
But that's journalism. Debunking isn't journalism. Debunking is seeking to disprove something because you don't believe it. And what's so wild about those pictures is that they haven't been able to debunk them. They've tried. They said, what? It was a hubcap on a string. That doesn't look like that. And like I said, the UFOs that my son's mother and I saw, the 6 of them, exactly like that. So, yeah, I think that's probably one of the best pictures of a UFO ever taken. And it was in 1950.
I just want to give you one example of the problem we face in ufology for trying to get to the truth of certain things. So years later, I have been not to that many UFO conferences, but I was selected as a speaker to one at the IUFOC, I think, in Phoenix. And so I put together a PowerPoint. And what I made for that PowerPoint, I was trying to make the point that the media never covers these stories accurately or appropriately. Right? They always either make fun or whatever. And I was trying to make a point of this is what should have happened. So I made a Time and Newsweek magazine with the McMinnville photos in them. Right? And I put that up for the audience and said, remember these magazines? And everybody's like, yeah. And I said, no, you don't. They're fake. I made them. Right? Just to show people, ask questions, don't always believe things. Okay. If you go to the McMinnville UFO Conference website under their history section, they have my magazine.
Oh, no.
And they are showing it as the real thing. And I have written them letters. I have social media posted about it. I've told friends to talk to them about it, and they won't take it down.
Oh, no. You
Think about
accidentally
that.
became part of the problem.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe it.
I mean, and so I say that only, I'm not trying to be alarmist. I'm just saying you got to ask questions. And honestly, I wish the people there would just take it down. They should.
All right, let's leave that there. We covered about enough of that. That was about 45 minutes of that 3-hour interview. Links are in the description on BTN and in the live chat of both BTN and my channel. Look, the UFO thing is always going to be contentious. There are going to be people who are always going to fight back. They're always going to try and make you sound like a loon, even though you know what you saw. And I'm not defending. I mean, there's so many people that have fabricated things. And to those people, I say, fuck you, because you take away from the legitimacy of the people who truly took pictures, who truly had these experiences and tried to share them out of wonder, out of fascination. So, yeah, I can't stand the garbage that's out there when it comes to this topic, but I don't discard anything. And that particular UFO that they're talking about, I think is the McMinnville one. I believe it was. Yeah, absolutely true. All right, so what we're going to do, it was an extra long version of Beyond the Noise on Saturday night. You guys ever see that Simpsons where that radio DJ was talking about what? Oh, dude, I can't remember the name of the song. Doesn't matter. But did an extra long version of a song. All right, so anyway, we're going to raid out to Ashelon, who's doing the round table of randomness right now. Good friend, good dude. Go on over there and check out Ashelon, if you would. I'm going to do the raids from both channels. And I am going to call it an evening. But if you're new here, please make sure you hit the follow. Follow us. We're going to do a show on Monday. I do believe music related. And then Wednesday, of course, is What the Fuck, Chat? Come on through. Check us out. Yankee was predisposed this evening, so he couldn't join me. But we had fun. I had fun. I don't know about you guys. I had a blast. I love UFOs. I could talk about UFOs all night. And there's so much more. But that's a great interview. Make sure you go follow the Y-Files. Links in the description and in the live chats. Go over and follow AJ. AJ does magnificent work. But I think that's where we're going to end it for the evening. So I think over on my channel, I will be doing a gaming stream shortly to go hang out, maybe Arc Raiders, maybe Crimson Desert. I don't know. I'm going to do one of those things because it's Saturday night. And I worked 12 hours last night. And I'm going to enjoy myself. So I'm going to go over and play some video games over on my channel, which is I am live on right now. But I'm going to brief pause, and I'll be live up there again here shortly. But as for Beyond the Noise, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And I hope that you guys follow us. And until next time, God bless. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Thank you for watching Beyond the Noise, a subsidiary of SOAR Network. We're live every other Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. To ensure you don't miss the show, make sure you follow the channel and share it with anyone you think might benefit from our work. You can find Yankee every Friday night on his Living Yankee Free channel for bourbon and beer for some irreverent fun with friends. Or drop by his music channel, Patriot Jams, for good tunes to get you through your day. Better yet, follow his main channel, Yankee Free, for all alerts for any of his content. You can follow RS on his main Rumble channel, Republic Sentinel, for alerts for all of his shows, and TRS News for an alternative take on the news. If you have specific questions for our guests or the hosts that